Administration's North Korea policy, the secrets of 2008 first revealed. My name is Ji Ga-seul, chairperson of Young Adults and Youth Committee of Newark. Thank you, everyone. I am your moderator for this event. I'm going to announce a few technical announcements. Please rename yourself with your name and the location where you are. And if you want English translation, you can click the globe button at the bottom of the screen and you can hear English translation. If you have any questions, please leave your questions on the chatting session. And we will also have the Telegram discussion room. I'm going to provide the link after the meeting. So,
오늘 4시까지 진행을 하고 나머지 부분은 텔레그램 공부방으로 참여하시면 됩니다.
until 4 p.m.
아까 제가 통역 안내 말씀을
So I gave you the announcement about the English translation. If you click the globe button at the bottom of the screen, you can hear English translation. And the order of the event is as following, that we will have first saluting the national flag, and we will have opening remarks, welcoming speech, and we will hear the lecture from Professor Jose Kang. So first, we will do saluting the national flag. Because we are meeting on a Zoom, you can freely stand up or sitting. Please make your salute to the national flag on the monitor.
국기에 대하여 경례.
나는 자랑스러운 태극기 앞에 자유롭고 정의로운 대한민국의 무궁한 영광을 위하여 충성을 다할 것을 굳게 다짐합니다.
바로
다음은 애국가를 제청하겠습니다.
Next, we will sing the national anthem together.
나라를 위해 희생하신 모든 분들을 기억하고 추모하는 시간을 갖겠습니다. 일동 묵념.
Next, we will pray in silence for those who sacrificed themselves for the national interest.
국기에 대하여 경례.
죄송합니다. 예.
Sorry for the technical mistake.
미krofon 마쳤고
So now we will move on to the next step.
네, 다음은 시애틀 협의회 19기
Next, we will hear
이번 강연 환영사 및 인사말을 듣도록 하겠습니다.
welcoming speech
네,
from
회장님,
Sung-Hoon Kim, Chairperson of Newark, Washington Chapter.
네, 회장님 언뮤트 풀어주시고
Hello, would you please unmute yourself?
언뮤트가 안 풀리나요? 예, 다시
You cannot do that. Anyone can help him. It's okay now. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm so pleased to see so many of you attending this lecture today. Seattle has a spring finally. Flowers are blooming and less rain bothers us. However, we still don't see satisfactory progress in addressing the pandemic. Many are completing their vaccination and being very cautious. I hope we will see our spring in overcoming the pandemic very soon. I would like to express my special gratitude to Won-ji Kwon, Consul General, for honoring this event despite his busy schedule. My special gratitude also goes to Vice Chair Deok Kwan-no and members of the board for preparing and attending the lecture. Please accept my sincere apology that I cannot name everyone who is here to honor the event due to the time constraints. I really appreciate Dr. Jose Kang for agreeing to give us lectures. Not just once, but 4 lectures in a row. I'm sure we will all learn a lot from him. In fact, we have had lectures with professors in South Korea, in the United States, but I'm so excited to have a professor from Europe because I think we can learn a different perspective to see North Korea, its nuclear program and economy. Please stay with us until the end. I hope it will be a good opportunity for all of us to know more about North Korea and think again how we can be better prepared for peaceful unification of the Korean Peninsula. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your remarks.
적극적인 지지와 또 지원을 아끼지 않으신 회장님께
Chairperson Kim provided full support in preparing this event. Thank you for your support. Next, we will hear
이번 강연 축사를 듣겠습니다. 총영사님 지금 들어와 계시나요? 혹시
complimentary remarks from Consul General Kwon Won-ji.
죄송합니다. 다른 들리시나요?
네.
Can you hear me clearly?
안녕하십니까? 주 시애틀 총영사 권원직입니다.
Hello,
지난 2월에
my name is Kwon Won-ji, Consul General located in Seattle. It is a great pleasure to meet all of you again after our last meeting in February on Zoom. I have been serving as a Consul General in Seattle for the last 4 months now. The pandemic gave us difficult situations, but thanks to the smooth vaccination, things get better. After a long winter, Seattle is now having a beautiful spring. We are tired of many things due to COVID-19, but I hope a bright and warm spring comes to all of us. I would like to extend my great appreciation to Pyeongtaung Seattle chapter for organizing a series of lectures on 4 occasions starting from today. We all are well aware of the weight the North Korean issues brings to the Korean society. The North Korea factor is seen and considered in every aspect of our lives, such as security, politics, economy, culture. North Korean issues are not limited to the Korean Peninsula. It has been a while since international attentions were drawn to North Korea. Now they are global issues. Since the COVID pandemic last year, North Korea has shut itself out of the outside world. It seems intent on international internally cementing unity and solidarity with more tightened control on its society. To the outside world, whenever it deems necessary, North Korea sends messages through statements, media reports, or by some sporadic actions like missile launches. Here in the US, the recently inaugurated Biden administration is conducting its foreign policy review. Such a general review includes its policy toward North Korea. It is said that other factors, such as the context of the US-China rivalry, its foreign policy principles and directions are taken into account in the process of North Korean policy review. One thing is clear. The US places a great emphasis on the importance of close coordination with its allies, including Korea.
실제로
It is
현재
more so with regard to North Korea
레벨에서
policy. On the ground,
있습니다.
Korea and the US are closely consulting with each other at all levels. As we have done, our two countries will work together toward a peaceful resolution of the North Korean issues. Under these circumstances, it is very significant and instructive to access
생각이 됩니다.
the current domestic situations of North Korea and to look into the possible future direction of the US Biden administration. In particular, I believe that today and future events hosted by 평통시애틀 chapter will help you think out small but meaningful steps toward the peace and stability of the Korean Peninsula, further laying the groundwork for the Korean unification. Once again, thank you to 평통시애틀 chapter for making today's event possible. I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us despite it is a Saturday afternoon. I hope you can join us for the next lectures and discussions if it is available.
강우재 박사님.
Now I'm going to introduce Dr. Ho-jae Kang. He is a research professor of Korean Studies at the Free University of Berlin. He is also a director, Research Center of North Korean Science and Technology. Hello, everyone.
제가 화면 아직 공유.
So I'm going to share my screen.
선생님하고 그다음에 총영사
So
오늘 다 참석을 해주시고 축사도
thank you
해주시고
so much, Chairperson Kim and
같이 하지
Consul General Kwon,
그리고 지금
for attending this event and giving us great remarks. I see we have more than 100 participants. Let's celebrate ourselves. And we have participants from all around the globe. I understand that you have a great expectation of my lecture today because you were told that you are going to learn new things for the first time. So, well, mostly when we say a lecture, it's more like only the speaker speaks. Excuse me, we have a technical issue. Okay, right now. Since when I was silent? Okay, just now. Okay, so I'm going to just repeat that. Okay, so I'm going to give you about a lecture for about 45 minutes or a maximum 50 minutes. And based on the information I gave you, we will have open discussions, free discussions. Last January, I had a session with like more than 150 participants, and we had like 2 hours of discussions. But I found that like it was not enough time to share our opinions. So that's why I opened a Telegram discussion room. It is open 24/7 hours. So you can freely join the Telegram group and leave your messages and share your opinions. And in Germany, school opens. So, and when we have my last lecture, school semester in Germany will be over. So it's more like you are following the college education system. So I can answer any questions if they are related to the topic of the lectures. So feel free to ask any questions. And my lecture today may be not familiar with many of you. Some of them are very new to some of you. So we are recording this lecture. So if you review the lecture again, especially within 3 days after the event, then you will have like 90% of memory of the lecture. And if you rewatch the lecture again within 1 week, you will have a 100% memory. So now I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
자, 오늘은 2008년으로
So now we will go back to the year 2008. Why 2008? It's because the new Biden administration is expected to follow the policy of the 2008 administration. And the final version of North Korea nuclear issue or nuclear policy was completed in 2008. And we had like 3 stages of denuclearization of North Korea. I think you all remember the stalking scene of Yongbyon nuclear facility was demolished. And then why we failed the task of denuclearization of North Korea even after the facility was destroyed. So behind the facts, there is the secret of 2008. Whenever I provide a lecture, many people say that like, I have never heard of you. So that's why I'm going to introduce myself. It is also important to see whether you can actually trust what I am saying about science and technology of North Korea. As you can see from my resume, I was great in physics. When I was a high school student, there were about 1 million high school students at the time. And then I got the gold medal in physics among these 1 million high school students. And also, I was admitted to Seoul National University, majoring physics. And then somehow my career changed, my interest changed. So I changed my major into interdisciplinary program of history and philosophy of science, majoring history and policy of science technology in North Korea. At that time, there was no department majoring that fact, and there was like no professor majoring in this field. So it was more like I was like just self-teaching myself. But I achieved a lot in this academic field. You can see that like, I got this is award of North Korean Studies Review, and my doctor's dissertation of the unification studies got the award. And 2 years ago, I taught at Tübingen University, and since last year, I am teaching at the Free University of Berlin. So I think I am the only one who studied North Korea science and techniques and who can show you different perspectives to understand North Korea and its nuclear programs. So now can you trust me more? So from my speech, if you have any doubts, then you have to blame yourself. It's all because you was not able to understand this. So anyway, it was a joke. And I published my doctor's dissertation into a book. I planned to have 4 volumes of this series. So the first one was the formation history of North Korea's science and technology. And the first volume was addressing the history until 1960.
2, 3, 4권을 다 내지 않을까 싶습니다. 목표는 그렇게 하고 있습니다.
I was able to publish only the first volume, but I'm expecting that I would have 3 more volumes
오늘 모이신
soon.
분들
And another book I published is that Understanding North Korea through Science and Technology. That was kind of introductory book about North Korea's science and technology. This book was sold out, so it is no more available. But if you go to my blog, you can see the index. But the reason why it was sold out, well, it was not because so many people loved it, but it was simply because not many people wanted to have that book. Anyway, so in understanding the future of the Korean Peninsula, we have to understand the science and technology. And the future should be related to reunification. And in order to have reunification, we have to have a better understanding of North Korea. By understanding North Korea better, we can find a way to move toward unification. And there is a gap between understanding North Korean issues and understanding the level of science and technology of North Korea. So that there are not many people talking about this issue. That's why I thought that this is my mission to do that. Only when we can connect discussions about science and technology, the future, and unification, only then we can have a peaceful unification on the Korean Peninsula. And I want to contribute to that. So the contents of my lecture today would be like this. First, I'm going to discuss about Zenon's paradox. Next, I will discuss the illusion tunnel vision issue. So because of this tunnel vision, people have lack of understanding of the facts because the information they have or they perceive is limited. And then I'm going to discuss about mysticism of number science and technology. Everyone, I say that like you hate numbers, but we have to understand this too. And then a nuclear hydrogen bomb issue. And I discuss what happened in 2008. So if you had enough patience to stay with me until I discuss what happened in 2008, maybe you can feel free to leave because you learned a lot. But The next step, we have to discuss also why the United States decide in such a way. And next, what would happen in the next 5 years? There could be most dreadful future. You may disregard it as like science fiction, but we have to think about it. And against this background, I'm going to try to present some recommendations to resolve the North Korean nuclear issues. So actually what happened in 2008? So I think you all remember the BDA incident, the Banco Delta Asia issue. At the time, the State Department and the Financial Department of the United States revealed that there were more than $10 million hidden in Banco Delta Asia Bank, and it took more than 1 year and 1.5 years to resolve that issue. From this, what you can overlap here is that there were instances of confiscating a North Korean vessel and um, deporting one North Korean person from Malaysia. Because so these things are not directly related to North Korea's nuclear program. So that's why I call these events as a rebellion of bureaucrats. The bureaucrats of the United States raise questions about trivial issues not directly related to North Korea's nuclear programs. If we repeat the history, then the resolution will be far away again. And we have to remember what happened in 2003, 2008. There were like 3 phases of North Korean denuclearization. And the parties were able to complete the second phase, but then the United States refused to move toward the third phase. So the whole program failed. Some of you may remember the discussions in Hanoi summit. Most of the discussions of Hanoi summit were actually exactly the same with what discussed in 2008. So we have to understand why the 2008 process failed. It seems very weird to me that not many people understand or try to do research about what happened in 2008. That's why I decided to research what happened in 2008. And that's why I am saying that like, the secrets of 2008 is revealed for the first time by me. So what happened? In 2008, in November, the United States suddenly changed its level of verification, or like the method of verification, and that led to the failure of the agreement. Since then, what the United States wanted to do, so I think the court process represents the intention of the United States. So that was basically focused on rebuilding the structure of a military coalition. So let's understand some theory behind this event. If it is an in-person lecture, I'm going to ask audience that if you have any questions or answers, but because we are meeting on a Zoom, I'm going to speak to myself. So it is Zenon's paradox we have to understand first. So you see from the picture that one person is the Achilles. He is following or like trying to catch up the turtle. So what do you think? All of us think that yes, he can easily catch up the turtle, but Zenon explains differently. Let's see. So Achilles is standing right here, and then it takes time for him to arrive at the position of where the turtle was standing. If we say it was 1 second, then during the 1 second, a turtle is also like moving even slowly. So it is still ahead of the man. So it's like you can never catch me up because how hard you try, I am also trying. So this is the paradox. So how can we address this paradox? The answer is infinite concept. So right now, because there is the interval between Achilles and the turtle, and then we divide this interval into infinite intervals, and then adding up infinite pieces of an interval. And the answer is very simple. Time is always finite. That's why even though you add up infinite pieces of interval, you still have a finite time answer. That's the answer to this paradox, which was solved after 2,000 years. Why am I speaking of this paradox? It's because whenever North Korea conducts missiles or nuclear tests, the media always said that like, it's failed, another failure. But then finally, North Korea made a success of its nuclear test. So North Korea actually completed its nuclear force. Nevertheless, just because the media always talked about the failures of North Korean program infinitely, we had this misconception of North Korea's program, even though North Korea actually succeeded. we still have the concept of that like, North Korea failed. That's the illusion. That's the tunnel vision. In order to have nuclear force completed, we have to achieve two lines. The first one is making a nuclear warhead, and the second is the delivery system. So I'll give you an example. We will not be able to see what's behind the clouds. That's what North Korea is representing. So we don't know what North Korea really wants or what North Korea really has right now, but we have to make assumption through the facts that are revealed or seen to us right now. So that's the possibility. From all the background facts, like North Korea's nuclear test, missile test, and its experiments. And for example, recently North Korea made 6 tests. So now from the possibility, we saw that experiments, tests, and what is the next step? That's the completion of a nuclear pulse. So we all know that North Korea conducted dozens of missile tests. So we can assume that North Korea is almost at the completion level. So I'm going to compare this with the mountain climbing. Until we climb to the certain level, like a certain height, we say that look, there is a possibility, there must be something on that level. But then when we finally arrived at the level, such as like between possibility and experiment, we still see the failures only. And we say that, so it is a failure. And then we also see that North Korea is making advances for a while, and then it goes to the plateau again. And we still see nothing completed. So then we say, okay, it's a failure again. But still, we don't know the top secrets behind the cloud. We only see what North Korea allows to be revealed to the world. That's how we arrived at this level, that watching North Korea successfully conducted missile tests, even the missiles launched by a submarine. And right now, North Korea is on the flattened level again. So is it a failure? No, you can see from here that like how high North Korea arrived right now through this advancing plateau, this level. So what would be the summit of this mountain? That is the nuclear state. Who are on the summit level? There are only like 4 or maximum 6 countries which are recognized as nuclear states, like the United States, Russia, and like maybe India, Pakistan. There is no agency or organization to give a certificate that you are a nuclear state. But we all know from the facts that who are on the summit. But we have this misunderstanding that there should be someone who certifies that North Korea is on the summit. Something like only those who have like special quality or eligibility can arrive at the summit of the mountain that is a nuclear state. But it is so clear that in 2017, November 29th, North Korea arrived at the summit, the peak of the mountain. It became a nuclear state. Next, I'm going to discuss about mysticism of number, science, and technology. Many of us feel uncomfortable with the numbers, feeling it is too difficult. Like for example, we know how to use an iPhone, but we don't know how an iPhone was manufactured. But when people disregard or shun away from certain issue just because they feel it is so difficult to understand,
몇몇의 전문가들이 그걸 계속 찾아내야 된다고 봅니다. 제가
but
10여 년, 박사 받고 나서 10여 년
hidden secrets can be found in that difficult covered things. There are only few people who looked deeply into this like number and science and technology issues. I am saying that I am one of these few people who looked into this base of science, numbers, and technology. So right now, North Korea is a nuclear state. It has a nuclear capability, but we have to understand the hidden intentions. So that was the introduction. And now I'm going to explain more about nuclear bombs. There are two kinds of nuclear bombs. The first one is nuclear fission. One is uranium bomb. Uranium is available in nature. You just have to enrich uranium to make a bomb. But plutonium, you cannot obtain it naturally. So you have to make it. And when both uranium and plutonium, you need to have a critical mass in order to make fission. So you enrich or you make uranium or plutonium to the level of a critical mass. You create conditions to make that fission possible. And when it gets to critical mass, now you have a nuclear bomb. That's the basic principle of nuclear fission. And many media say centrifuge is a critical fact. What is a centrifuge? It is just like a washing machine. Like when you spin things fast, then you can divide certain elements into separate elements. For example, like uranium can be enriched by spinning them fast. So if we have like 1,000 centrifuges connected and spin them fast enough for about 1 year, then you can have, like, for example, like one uranium. That's the second nuclear crisis of North Korea with enriched uranium program. And for plutonium or uranium, there is also reactor. So that is to burn uranium. North Korea first developed its reactor program before centrifuge. So in the 1990s, North Korea imported one small reactor from the Soviet Union. So the first nuclear crisis was generated by this reactor program. And since 2016, North Korea developed hydrogen bomb. Hydrogen bomb or nuclear fusion is so dangerous. So this hydrogen bomb needs extremely high pressure to make it fusion. So basically, nuclear fusion is requiring fission process. So in theory, it can create infinite energy. By repeating fission and fusion infinitely. So we can even say that nuclear fission is lighter than nuclear fusion. If you have a nuclear fusion bomb, then you can actually break up the entire Earth. North Korea announced that it made a success in making a hydrogen bomb. So now we can say that North Korea has both nuclear bomb and hydrogen bomb. Well, this picture shows that how you can repeat the same process, and the picture on the right shows that how you make the nuclear weapon through uranium or plutonium. And so you make this nuclear disk that is prevented from self-explosion. And this yellow uranium disk can be safely hidden if you just bury them in a lead disk and bury them in deep in the earth. So that's the basic understanding of nuclear programs. And now I'm going to review what happened in 2008. So the secrets of 2008. We were on the second stage of denuclearization. The entire stage was like 3 stages. And at that time, North Korea submitted the daily records, which was about 19,000 pages, and North Korea also submitted the declaration of nuclear activities. And what the United States did in response, it lifted North Korea from the terrorism blacklist, and it supplied energy and food. Do you think it was like equal trade? It was very important because the United States requested IAEA, were like, requested monitoring or supervision of past nuclear activities of North Korea. But because these possibilities or these programs were hidden underground, the United States has had no way to know what really happened during this time. That's why it was very important for North Korea to submit its daily records. There was no data about how North Korea developed its program, how it tested, how it managed it. Because of the lack of the data, the only way to understand what the activities of North Korea was asking North Korea to submit its confessions, its statements describing what they did. So it was very important for the United States to have that information, despite the Trump administration refused to do the agreement. So one example is that there was a request of collecting specimen, and that was unagreed. But the Trump administration but the administration at the time demanded this collection of a specimen
합의를 해서 이건 공개하지
wherever
않는다.
they wanted to visit. That led to the failure of the agreement. I have collected a lot of information about this. Now we will see a graph here. So I explained that there are two elements, like two materials called nuclear, uranium and plutonium. And uranium, which was enriched less than 20%, you can use it for nuclear power plants. If it is enriched more, then it can be used as a nuclear bomb. So when you have enriched uranium of 2 kilograms or 10 kilograms, you can have one warhead. And for plutonium, between 5 to 25 kilograms,
찍찍거리고 있어요. 마이크.
it can have
네, 마이크가 지금
one nuclear warhead.
있습니다.
We have
계속 비슷합니다.
we have a noise from.
좀 안 좋은 마이크로 제가 바꾸겠습니다.
Okay, so I'm going to change my microphone. Before I was using a new one, but maybe this new one is not working. So I'm going back to the old one.
말씀해 보세요.
Can you
예.
speak? 네. Hello, can you hear me well? Yes.
제가 오늘 강의를 위해서 좋은 걸 샀는데요. 노래방 마이크.
Oh, well, I bought a new microphone just for this lecture, but maybe it's not working.
약간 이제 그
So now we are going into more exciting parts, but understand that you are losing your attention now, but please pay your attention closely to my presentation, because now we are going into more exciting part, but I understand the science is not an easy subject. So I explained that you can make a nuclear warhead from with plutonium and uranium. So how many uraniums or plutoniums North Korea used to make one nuclear warhead? It's so weird to see that there are completely different, extremely different expectations or assumptions from different experts. But anyway, so there was a very unscientific assumption that for plutonium, North Korea is using about 7 kilograms. Maybe it is just between 2 and 10 kilograms. But anyway, so 7 kilograms of plutonium to make a warhead and 20 kilograms of enriched uranium to make one nuclear warhead. That is what many reports say that North Korea is capable of making, but I find it ungrounded. Anyway, so the nuclear process, we have 3 phases: past nuclear, present nuclear, and future nuclear. What is our purpose? To prevent future nuclear. In 1994, we had one agreement. In 2008, we had also another agreement. So if we in 1994 and in 2008, we dealt with past nuclears. So now you see the data. In 2008, when North Korea agreed with the 3 phases of denuclearization and arrived at the second level, around that time, this is the assumption revealed by media. So the media were even academic reports, even though they were not grounded. But anyway, they had the assumption that a total of 36 to 37 kilograms of nuclear materials so North Korea said North Korea said that it had about 36 to 37 kilograms of nuclear materials. And at the time, the United States assumed that North Korea might be having 40 to 50 kilograms of nuclear materials. So anyway, that's the assumption made in 2008. And then there was misinformation. So let's talk about the past nuclear. In 1989, a French satellite took a picture of North Korea's nuclear facility, smoking coming from the facility. And then at that time, the United States assumed that North Korea maybe extracted about 10 kilograms of nuclear materials. But there was no supporting documents at all. But everyone agreed that with this, even though like a maximum 10 kilograms of nuclear materials, North Korea was not able to make one single nuclear warhead, so they disregarded it. And in May 2005, North Korea actually extracted a nuclear material from nuclear load, waste load. So that surprised the entire world. That's why the United States changed its policy. And during the Clinton administration, there was a joint communique between the United States and North Korea. What actually led to that joint agreement was North Korea's satellite test in 1998. The United States was not aware of this satellite launch that was called Gwangmyeong first. At the time, North Korea did not have a nuclear capability. However, if North Korea was able to launch a satellite, it means North Korea could launch an intercontinental ballistic missile. And indeed, in 2006, North Korea launched its missiles. It launched 7 missiles. Until then, even North Korea could not expect the range of the targets. But in 2006, North Korea was able to launch its missiles and was able to make these missiles target within 500 meters range. So North Korea conducted its missile test in July, and then in October, it made its first nuclear test. That led the Bush administration to change its policy toward negotiation. So until the end of 2005, CVID complete, verified, irrevocable, destroy policy did make sense during that time. However, the United States withdrew CVID and changed it into CC. So it is getting rid of VID and then only leave with the complete and correct. So because the United States was thinking that if we have the correct information of North Korea's nuclear activities, then the United States could resolve this nuclear crisis. That's why it changed its policy from CVID to CC. And that's why North Korea was obliged to submit 2 reports, daily records and nuclear activity reports. So
제품을 만들어
around that
생산하는
time,
단계까지 넘어갑니다.
North Korea's
그리고
nuclear
1985년도에
capability
보여줬습니다.
was
근데
significantly advanced to the experiment level.
아직
But
모르는
nuclear
부분이
material,
2006년에 첫 번째
it
핵실험
was
폭풍이
still
가동되기
on the lab
뭐가 나왔을까요?
test level.
탄력을 조절할 수 있구나. 이때
And then in
이제
2006, North Korea made the nuclear test. So it showed that North Korea had the capability to arrange or
따로 떨어져 있는
adjust its
두 개가
explosion power.
거라고 생각했을까요?
So
공개돼 있는 건 이 정도인데.
already around that time, North Korea had the nuclear weapon
여러분들이 판단해 보세요.
capability.
자, 그 판단의 근거를 정확하게 드립니다. 이때까지
So I
언론에
give you some grounds.
지금도 대부분의 연구 보고서에는 아까 제가 얘기했던 26, 뭐 6kg, 40kg 이런 게 나왔는데
So
이 핵
as I explained before, like there were many ungrounded reports saying that like, how much nuclear materials North Korea needed to make a warhead. But according to the daily records and nuclear activity report that North Korea submitted, North Korea announced that it had 39 kilograms of nuclear materials. And around 2008, the United States assumed that North Korea might have between 30 to 50 kilograms of nuclear materials. So we can assume that even like, as long as North Korea admits that it had like 30 kilograms of nuclear materials, the United States was ready to accept the report. So it's just like you're like tax reporting. So if you say, I earned this amount of money, income this year, then you report that income to make your tax assessment. Then North Korea reported kind of like a maximum of its capability. So like what I'm saying is that like, because if North Korea reported that it had like 30 kilograms of nuclear materials, North Korea would have been safe to just to produce 30 kilograms and leaving 9 kilograms behind. But North Korea made a very truthful report because North Korea said that it had 39 kilograms. That's what the United States representatives admitted, recognized. Like for example, like all the nuclear experts, like scientific experts in the United States, who read the reports made by North Korea about its nuclear capability, they also agreed that North Korea made a good faith report. And then the and so it is common understanding that North Korea extracted 39 kilograms of nuclear materials, and it also had the capability of launching a missile. So what's the conclusion? The first conclusion is that finite, saying that like, North Korea has not yet achieved the nuclear capability. Whereas the second conclusion could be infinite, saying that North Korea already arrived at the peak of the
북한의 핵무력을
mountain.
반영을 못했기 때문에 무슨 수를
So
썼을까요?
these two different conclusions
근데
lead to different approaches to resolve the issue.
2008년에 막거나
Because
지금 막거나 나중에 막거나 똑같아요.
if you
그때 막으려고 했을 수도 있고
think
안 할 수도 있습니다. 왜? 똑같으니까. 지금 애를 써서 막거나 나중에 막거나 북한은 이제 핵무력을 갖췄어.
so, if you think that North Korea is already capable of producing a nuclear weapon, then there is no big difference from stopping them at the time or later, because North Korea already has the capability. But we don't know whether North Korea was capable of producing nuclear weapons in 2008. At the time, we didn't know, but now we know something clearly, that in 2008, the United States did not stop North Korea's nuclear activities because the United States at the time concluded that North Korea was already capable of producing a nuclear weapon. So let's see that in 2010, North Korea invited Dr. Hacker from the United States and show him its centrifuge. So we don't know how much uranium North Korea has, but it is assumed that it is estimated that about half of total uranium reservoirs in the world is in North Korea. So North Korea is rich of uranium. And it has about 2,000 centrifuges. Per year, North Korea can create 40 kilograms of nuclear materials. So, based on this calculation, that it can produce 40 kilograms of uranium per year, and then how many nuclear weapons, like warheads, it can produce from these nuclear materials, we can estimate like how many nuclear warheads it has. And then North Korea made 6 times of a nuclear test. And after 2017, North Korea announced that it would not conduct any more nuclear tests because it already has enough data. And what about the missile test? In 2009, 2012, 2016, 2017, North Korea conducted a series of missile tests. And November 2017, Hwasong 15 missile was launched, and last year, October, Hwasong 16, that is considered as the longest ballistic missile, and that was launched. And it also North Korea also conducted several submarine launched missile tests. So you see this graph that in 1994, North Korea was capable of this small amount of nuclear capability, and now we have too many. we have too much. It is almost impossible to verify.
이제 집중력이 점점 떨어지나요? 이제 끝이
That's the
됐습니다.
secret
정보는 끝났고요.
of
그렇다면
2008.
미국은
So,
무슨 판단을 했을까?
what
정보
conclusion
책두 권을
did the
신속하게
United
분석하니까,
States
비핵화
make
불가능하겠구나. 왜? 이미 보유했는데 대학에
by
보유한 것을
reviewing the
참여를
two
하더라고
reports
하는데
submitted
그걸
by
거절하고
North
한다고
Korea?
하면 말이 안 된다. 그럼
I
판단은
think
잘못된 거죠.
the United
그 판단은
States
전략적
made the
인내가
conclusion that
근데 그게
denuclearization
전략적 인내를 못
is
할까?
impossible.
기다렸다라고 하죠. 북한이 뭐 붕괴될 때까지
That's why
이거 기다리는 뭔가
the
수가
United
있겠지.
States
그런 면에서
administration
살짝
chose
바꿔.
the
남한
strategy
정부한테 말하는
of
시간을
strategic
최대한
patience.
남한 정부한테 얘기하지 말자. 왜?
And the United
남한
States
자국
decided not to tell the
그래서
truth
먼저
to
말하면 안
South
돼요.
Korea because they
이렇게
thought
그래서
that
이제
South Korean
진실을
government
말하지
did
말자.
not know
때가
the
될 때까지
fact.
다 알게 될 때까지 진실을 말하지 말자.
So
이렇게
the level
바꿔서
of South Korea's
이 얘기를
intelligence was
그래서
low,
모르는 거예요.
and
분석을 제대로 안 하는 것 같아요. 네?
North
남한에서 나오는
South
보고서가
Korea
다
was
필요 없는
ignorant,
못 보니까 나불나불
and
봉제되어 있는 거지.
South Korea did not have
없어요.
um,
저는 물리학과 학부 수준입니다. 그래서 이
any
검증을
documents, the supporting documents,
검증을
scientifically
말씀해
verified.
라고 하는데 그 얘기가 전혀 안 나와요. 끊임없이 비핵화를 얘기를 해요.
As a
비핵화를
scientist,
왜 할 수 없어요? 비핵화
I was wondering
검증을 못 합니다.
why South Korea
찾아낼 수가 없어요.
was not
근데 어떻게 검증을 해요?
was
이때도 못 했는데.
speaking of
그래서
denuclearization or verification
과학적 판단을
repeatedly,
트럼프조차도 그 공방이
even it is clear, even when it is clear that it is impossible to denuclearize North Korea because it is already nuclearized.
트럼프가 대통령 되고 나서 제일 먼저
So
11월
the decision of South Korean government was just taking the side of the United States.
근데 우리 정부는 그걸 잘 안 한 것 같아요.
The
그래서 우리
South,
정부에서 나오는
South Korean government
딱한 명, 핵과학자가 들어가 있는 보고서가 핵
did
비핵화
not
불가 같아라는 중간 보고서는 있습니다. 근데
make
파이널 가면 그 얘기가 또 사라집니다.
did not make a scientific decision.
다 들어가서 다시 비핵화 가능으로 바꿔내요.
So there is one
그나마
report
좀
that
희망을 가지고
included
말에
a comment by a nuclear scientist who said that denuclearization was impossible at the time. But then the
잘 읽어보면은
the general conclusion of the report said that denuclearization is
다른
possible.
방법을 해야 10년, 20년 걸려야 그나마 핵을 관리할 수 있다.
So
그래서 핵과학자, 핵 관련된 시설들
the nuclear scientist
이런 주장을 하고 있는 게 해커 박사가 제가 봤을 때는 유일합니다. 근데 그 해커 박사를 이인영 장관이 작년에
Dr. Hacker from the United States seems to be the only one who says that denuclearization of North Korea is already impossible.
비핵화 가능했느냐? 비핵화하는데 제재가 얼마나
And
라는 얘기가 이
how much sanctions contributed to the process of denuclearization of North Korea.
영역으로 갔습니다. 그래서 비핵화는 이제
So I'm saying that denuclearization is now impossible because it went beyond the verifiable level.
그럼 이제 저는 질문만 던지겠습니다. 오늘
So I'm going to just ask you like present questions.
근데 비핵화를 해야 결속을 할 수 있어요.
Now denuclearization of North Korea is impossible, but then why the United States is still requesting denuclearization of North Korea? Why? Because it is the only way to unite its allies until everyone understands or realizes that it is impossible to denuclearize North Korea. So what should we do? We have to unite those countries who are afraid of nuclearized North Korea. I think that's what the United States wants to have. And what has not been affected by the administration's change in the United States
그런 군사 동맹 체계를
as
만들려고 하는 게 아니라
military
지금 되도록
alliance.
그리고 정말 웃겨요.
And
주장하지 않-
that
왜
is
핵을
what the
가졌다고
United
하는 거.
States
북은 핵을 가지고
continuously
핵무력 국가입니다. 근데 그걸 인정하는
pursued
패러다임이 바뀌어요. 마치
despite
미국이
the change of its administrations.
천지에 들어가는
And
관리인이 있고 그 관리인이 표를 줘야만 천지에 들어가는 것처럼 착각하게 만드는 거죠. 북은 그냥
what
핵 보유 국가입니다. 근데 그걸 누가 인정해요? 인정할
like,
수가 있는 나라는 없어요.
who is
안 가진 나라가
recognizing
한다면 인정을 해줘서
North Korea is a nuclear state?
그래서 이건 말장난입니다. 핵무 보유
There
국가를
is no
인정해야
country,
한다는 건 말장난입니다.
no
자,
organization
보세요.
who
한일
can recognize or certify
문재인 정부는
which
문재인
country
정부는
has a
핵
nuclear
핵
capability or not.
뭐를 가지고 했어요? 위안부 합의해주면서 그 뒤에 숨깁니다. 후광 효과를 노리는
So
거예요.
let's see that, for example, like the relations between Korea and Japan.
한일 군사 비밀 정보 보호협정.
So
뒷소리를 하면서 위안부를 가지고 앞에
Korea and Japan has this dysomnia, General Security of Military Information Agreement, and this dysomnia agreement process was hidden behind this Japanese sexual slavery issue. And Korea USA problems
한국이 일본이 수집한
is
군사 정보가 그냥 자동으로 미국으로 넘어가게 돼 있다고 합니다.
is hidden behind this missile defense
한국에서
system. Anyway,
군사 정보는
so this
자동으로
dysomnia
지금
allows
일본의
any
미국
information
한국과 일본 그다음에 미국
produced by South Korea or any information produced by Japan
문재인 대통령이 당선된 그 시점에 사드가
could
들어오고
be exchanged
여기에 있지 않을까라고 봅니다.
not only between
똑같은 짓을 하는 거죠.
Korea and Japan, but also with the United States.
중국도 또 하나의 적 가상 허수아비
And now,
만들고
the Biden administration, following the Trump administration,
그런 효과가 아닐까라고
is demanding cold. And that is also a part of expansion of a military coalition. So it's the same system, saying that we have the same common enemy here, so we have to make a front line together with allies. That's the military coalition. But North Korea became a nuclear state already 4 years ago. And in 2016, North Korea had all the necessary facilities or conditions.
산속에 올라간 그 사람한테
But
에너지 공급, 식량 공급을
then
끊어서 내려오겠지라고 착각을 한 거죠. 근데 북은
it was like North Korea was climbing a high mountain, and the outside world thought that if we cut all the food supply or like energy supply to North Korea, then it will stop climbing the mountain. But what did North Korea do? It instead started farming on the mountain. So North Korea created this self-sustainable system. So when the sanctions prohibited import from outside world into North Korea just simply said that we are not going to depend on import anymore. And North Korea changed its entire system into self-sustainable system, requiring no more import. So it is clear that outside pressure cannot change North Korea. North Korea is declaring that we are not going to be influenced by any outside pressure, even if that is a war.
못 살게 되니까 전쟁 웬만하면 안 하려고 했겠죠. 근데
So
이제 싹 끌어낸 거예요.
North Korea's policy is to minimize the influence of outside to almost zero. So North Korea is saying that if North Korea is self-sustainable, then it doesn't have to be bothered by outside pressures. The, there was a recently there was the eighth plenary committee of North Korea Workers' Party.
2년, 10년 전만 하더라도
There,
우리 영토에 1mm라도 들어오면이라고 공격 가능성을
North Korea
뭐라고요? 영토에 들어오면 때리겠다. 근데 밖에 있으면 괜찮다.
recognized that there is a possibility of war breaking out outside of the Korean Peninsula.
어디요? 영토 밖에서도 선제적으로 미리 때리지 않더라도
And
우리가 공격할 거야라고
before,
무섭지 않나요?
in the past, North Korea said that only when
이 상황을
a war breaks out
아, 전쟁이 터질
on the
수도
Korean
있겠네.
Peninsula,
이렇게 얘기하니까
North Korea will
누가
defend
핵을 가졌는데 무슨 전쟁이 터지나라고
itself.
국지적
But now it is
국가도
changed.
국가도 전면전은 절대
It
불가능하지만
is now saying that
로컬로
our defense
사방,
power can
이렇게
suppress
얘기하는
the
거예요.
enemy
근데
in
그게
advance,
우리나라에
even
전쟁
though
사람들 영향 안
it
받는
happens
사람들이
outside
무서워합니다.
of its sphere.
국지적으로는 전쟁이
So
일어나면 젊은 사람이 죽어나갑니다. 우리 연평도에서도 사람이
let's
죽었잖아요.
see that
그럼 민간인도 죽었습니다.
even
그
a
과정에서 이제 해군,
small
젊은
breakout
사람들이 죽어나갔습니다.
of
왜
a war, like a,
전쟁이 터지면 사람이 죽어요.
even a small
people
conflict,
상황에
people can
벌어지는
die. We already saw that
뭐요?
the
인게이지먼트를
in the
강화시켜야 돼요.
Yanpyeong battle.
인게이지먼트를 제로로 만들고 있습니다. 미국은 의도하지 않게 인게이지먼트를 제로로
And
만들기
now
위해
North
도전을 하고
Korea
있습니다. 유엔도
is
마찬가지예요. 그러면
making
전쟁
this
가능성
engagement level to zero.
서로 사이좋게 대화를 해야 싸움이 풀어져야
And the United States is driving that move.
전쟁 나요. 그래서 저는 5년 내에
When there is no engagement at all, there would be a war inevitably.
제가 보여드린 그림입니다.
That's really
북은 이렇게 해서 이미
dreadful future.
인정해주고 말고 할게
So, as I explained before, North Korea is already at the level of a nuclear state.
이제는 다 알고 있습니다. 누가
This
인정하고
status was hidden behind the cloud, so we were not able to see in the past, but now we can see that.
단계별로 갔을 때 이게 여태 안전한 모습, 이때 모습으로
So,
계속 착각하고 있어요.
when there were plateaus and when we thought there was nothing to be worried about, and at that time we failed to address the possible escalation to the conflict. Because of these repeated failures, we are now at the level of North Korea being a nuclear state. We had this momentum of agreement with crisis. First in 1994 and 2008, 2017, maybe next would be like 2024, something. Around that time, North Korea has the end of its 5-year plan of nuclear programs. That will be about the end of the Biden administration. So, as a conclusion, so what would be the solutions? I don't know the answer, but I can present some conditions required to identify solutions. The first one is that nuclear is science. It is not possible for political and diplomatic solutions go beyond the scope of science and technology. That's why we have to understand the science and technology. And the second matter is that people say that there is no solution just because Kim Jong-un has no intention or commitment to resolve the issue, but that's not the answer. The issue of denuclearization is not the psychological problems, not the issue of will or intention. We have to increase the engagement level. And the first step to increase engagement level is that lifting sanctions. Only then we can increase the engagement level and we can have negotiations and we can actually discuss the solutions. So as I told you before, we have a Telegram group. So usually we just share messages, but sometimes we have like
네,
um,
감사합니다, 박사님.
we have a Zoom meeting.
PT 조금 내려주시고 저희가 이제
Can
갤러리
you
뷰로
stop
한번 다 같이 얼굴을 보면서
screen share?
자유롭게 질문과 또 토론의 시간을
So
가지도록
now
하겠습니다. 강훈
we
박사님
will
어떤
have
자유롭게
free
또
discussion, question and answers.
해주실 텐데요. 박사님께 지금까지 쭉 들은 강연을 보시고
So
질문을
based on the
주시는데,
lecture, based on the information we learned today, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask any questions. Maybe you don't have a lot of questions now because you were so busy understanding the information, new information. Well, so in 2008, the six-party talks and a number of discussions
예, 안타깝게
created a possible solution, and the parties actually achieved the second stage of the program, but we failed at the second stage. So we have to discuss further. If you have any questions, please.
한정로 선생님 질문하십니다. 예, 뮤트 푸시고
Maybe
한정로 선생님
한정로?
질문에서요. 오늘 오신 분들의 질문을 예전에 해보니까 좀 다른 얘기가 많이 생겨요. 그래서 오늘 제가 얘기한 거로부터 우선
I would like to ask you to keep your question limited to what we discussed today. So as a nuclear state, maybe North Korea wants the international community to recognize it as a nuclear state. However, until now, North Korea has been isolated from the outside world, and there should be diplomatic relations and exchanges. So it is so difficult for people to live together when it is isolated. We are now experiencing the same thing due to the COVID pandemic. So it is difficult to recognize North Korea as a nuclear state. It seems that North Korea has really advanced the science and technology. It could be like a threat to the United States. But even though North Korea is isolated and it has like advanced nuclear technology, but still we have to how we can make the international community to recognize North Korea and and make it no more isolated from the outside world. So it seems there is like very complicated process to make things. I don't know, like I'm not sure if there is a way to have this question. So North Korea has nothing to change. North Korea can do only one thing, that yes, we have a nuclear capability, but we will use it only for peaceful purposes, and we are not going to distribute this nuclear capability to outsiders. You see that a non-proliferation treaty does not require a nuclear state
하지 않고 비보유 국가는 핵을 추가하지
그-
않는다라고 되어 있다고 생각하는데 NPT 안에 핵 보유
So
국가 다른 나라를
the obligation of a nuclear state under the non-proliferation treaty does not include its non-aggression agreement. But North Korea has promised that it would not attack any other countries with its nuclear capability, and it would only use it for peaceful uses. So then what the outside world can do?
유엔 가입국들이 조금 더 강한 결의안을 내놓는 거지 그게 법적인 요소를
Maybe the United Nations Sanctions Committee, but the United Nations Sanctions Committee is not really binding because each member state
있는 전문가
needed to
8명,
authorize
7명이
any actions. Right now, the Sanctions Committee is composed of 8 experts, and they have regular meetings and discussions, and they're like the permanent members of the UN Security Council and Japan participating in the Sanctions Committee. However, for example, the Sanctions Committee can send an official letter to like universities in the world and asking these universities to reveal if there were any activities or engagements or exchanges with North Korea regards to nuclear programs. And if these universities says, no, we haven't done anything, and the Sanctions Committees simply report that we asked these universities and these universities said no. So we have to change the fundamental strategy here. And another question is what civilians can do. What I think is that we have to study hard. You know the sayings that devils in details. Did you know all of the information I provided you today before my lecture? I don't think so. But this information were available through many media reports. So the information itself was available, but we were not able to organize this information into making sense. So we have to find out the truth, and we have to recognize that North Korea's denuclearization is impossible. It's now beyond the scientific and technology level. And we have to inform the international community about the truth. Hello, thank you for your lecture. I am also teaching science at the Alaska University. I have two questions. I have so many questions actually. First, as five permanent members of the United Nations Security Council and India, Israel, so like there are seven nuclear states and North Korea. And now
질문이고요. 네.
so my first question is why North Korea's nuclear status is different from that of India or Israel. And second, I understand that you said that North Korea's nuclear program is unverifiable. Is it because North Korea is already capable of nuclear weapons? Or, well, anyway, I don't think there is consistent policy towards North Korea, regardless of their perspectives, whether it is conservative or progressive. Not only about North Korea, but also about Japan.
네, 조금 줄여주시죠. 예. 첫 번째 질문은 명확한데 두 번째는 선생님
I
질문이 좀 애매한데요.
think
첫 번째 질문에 대답을
두 번째
하면서
질문을
다시
간단하게 말씀을 드리면은
예?
한국이
it's not clear what the second question is, but my question is that
그 주장이잖아요.
South Korean government
선생님 주장이잖아요.
lacks
질문을 뭐라고 던지신 거예요?
consistency in its North Korea policy.
마지막
예.
쪽에 첫 번째 결론은
So
예, 그래서 첫 번째부터 하면요. 그 북한의
the first
핵 무기를
question,
인정하자 말자는
um,
제가 얘기한 대로
whether we have to
핵을 가지고
recognize
있는
North
나라가
Korea's
밖에서
nuclear
나가지
capability or not, that's just nonsense.
아닌 거죠. 제가 강호재입니다. 근데 제가
Once
강호재인 거를
a
누가 인정해 줘야 됩니까?
state
저는 그냥 제 스스로
is capable of nuclear
북은 이미
weapons,
핵무기를 그걸 인정해 주고 말고의
then there is no need for others to recognize it. I am Kang Ho-jae. It's not
뭐 체제나
because someone else said that I am Kang Ho-jae, but I am Kang Ho-jae of myself. So that's the same with North Korea's nuclear status. Maybe many international science or like politics say that like, it is because of the purpose of its nuclear programs, whether it is for peaceful use or weapons. But I don't think that makes sense. There is no scientific grounds. It seems that simply they are not just accepting any new nuclear state. And why I am saying that denuclearization should not be our aim is because that is not possible scientifically. The, even though we have a lot of doubts about there must be something else hidden behind the door, but if you cannot verify it, there is no use of this doubt. So it's just like rewriting your hard drive. If you rewrite your hard drive repeatedly, many times, then it is impossible to see what words in the hard drive in the beginning. So what I am saying is that when we speak of denuclearization of North Korea is our aim, it's not the solution. It's not possible. That's what I want to say. Maybe the Moon Jae-in administration feels it's like you should not blame us for this because there was originally MB denuclearization 3000 plan something. So I understood this MB denuclearization 3000 plan was saying that only because to actually say what it actually said was that denuclearization, which was an impossible goal. So if North Korea cannot achieve denuclearization, then we don't have to provide anything. And it means so it's like you are telling your children that I will buy you a cookie, a snack only when you go to Seoul National University. That's impossible. Maybe possible, but usually impossible.
예, 그다음에는 구은희 선생님 간단히 질문 부탁드립니다.
Next,
샌프란시스코 협의회 구은희 간사이고요.
my name is Kuoni from San Francisco.
오늘 강의가 저한테 굉장히 충격적이었거든요. 그 이유가
Today's lecture was very shocking to me because during the past year under the pandemic, I joined a lot of webinars and lectures, but today's lecture was really new and surprising. You said that like all the information you discussed in the lecture were publicly available. From the political perspective, like the understanding, we're analyzing the information, the approach was very new to me. Like for example, like you said that South Korean government was not aware of the facts in 2008. And what about now? Do you still think the South Korean government is not aware of the fact? That's why it is still pursuing the same North Korea policy. Then why don't you inform the South Korean government? Well, I may ask you the same question that even though like I gave this information to the South Korean government, I doubt the South Korean government would adopt this policy. What was the most shocking to you? Well, almost every information was very new, and I also loved your way of presenting the issue. That is that like you provided your presentation both in Korean and English, and well, this kind of issue is very difficult, and but sometimes just because it's such a lecture is provided only in Korean, so it's not possible for younger generation who don't know Korean have access to this presentation.
가지고 동시 통역도 하고
Thank you so much for your compliments.
학생들이 한국
But
학과지만은
yes, we are providing simultaneous translation, and right now I am teaching in Germany.
내용이죠. 제가 여쭤본 이유가 저는 정부에서
It's still difficult for students to understand my lecture without written scripts.
자, 그러면
So it is very helpful. I found out it is very helpful for both the students and for me to have scripts written in both languages. And
그러면 정책 결정권자들이 얘기하는 걸 우리가
the
충분히 해야 되는데 아는 흔적이 별로 안
policy
보이는
makers or
그런데
decision
제가
makers,
얘기하는 게 특별한 얘기를 제가 모르는
I'm
특별한 어떤 정보를
like,
누구한테
I
들어본 것
don't
그렇게
see
얘기를
any
했는데
like clear signs that they are really aware of the facts that I discussed. But
그다음에 2008년에 북이
But
가지고 있는
what you didn't know were only two facts that for the first nuclear test, North Korea used 2 kilograms. And North Korea in 2008 announced that it had 39 kilograms of nuclear materials.
써놓는 그 보고서는 읽을만 합니다.
So those
근데
reports
제가 얘기한 것처럼 제가 판단하는 근거를 여러분들은 다
are
알고
now
있습니다.
available.
저는
So that's
이러이러한
worthwhile
데이터를
to know
가지고
this
있는
issue.
겁니다. 결론만
And
내려서는 제가
also,
대답하는 겁니다.
like, so based on the data already available to the public, but I made
그게 지금
this
미국에서 하고 있는
analysis.
일인데 자기들이 아는 걸 공개를 안 해요.
So
정부에서 아는 걸
what's
공개를
going
해요.
on
그러면
in the United States is that the United States has information, has data, but it does not reveal, it does not make it, the data to public.
나는 진실을 모르겠습니다. 근데
I
당신들이
don't know the
어떤
truth,
얘기인지를
but I'm also not a decision maker. But as a scientist, I can just say that based on the data available, I made this conclusion, I made this analysis. That's just what I am saying. And North Korea has always publicized it as criticism, as assessment,
정상 국가였는데 우리가 보기에
and the
비정상이었다가
outside
정상이
world says that like, North Korea is becoming a normal country. Then we have to change ourselves also in understanding North Korea. We have to make like a normal analysis of North Korea. We don't have to rely only on the statements by North Korean refugees, but we have to make our analysis based on scientific data.
질문이 계속 이어지고
Thank
있습니다만은
you.
시간
We
관계상
have so
질문을
many
진행하는
questions coming,
저희가
but
텔레그램
due
채널로
to time constraints,
들어오셔서
we have to finish here.
지금 저기
Can we go a little bit over
정해진
the time?
네, 그러면
Well,
일단
maybe
마지막으로 마무리 짓고
we are going to close the event now. Like if anyone who wants to stay longer and discuss with me, they can just stay here. And I also left the Telegram group link on the chatting window, so we can continue our discussion there. Thank you so much, everyone, who joining this event from all around the world. And also, I would like to thank everyone who is working so hard for peaceful unification of the Korean Peninsula. Thank you. So this is the ending of the first lecture. I will see you all the second time.
그 주소는 기존 텔레비
Thank you.
텔레그램 주소에 주소 같습니까?
여기 지금
Thank you, everyone.
채팅창에다가 올렸습니다.
다시 한번 올려주세요.
네, 올려드렸습니다.